Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. In a few moments, I'll be sharing my thoughts and feelings on episode 2 of Married at First Sight Nashville. And because I like to have my dessert first, I'll be giving you all a brief episode breakdown and an overall rating for the episode for the first part of this review. Then, I'll be sharing my thoughts on each couple for the episode. But before we get into the review, if you're new to the channel and you want to support my platform, then feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'm beyond thankful for all the new folks that checked out my review from last week and subbed to my channel as a result. But without any further delay, let's jump right in. Over the course of episode 2, we get to see Kirsten and Shaq, Gina and Clint, as well as Nicole and Chris, all get married and have their one-on-ones. A great deal of time throughout this episode was dedicated towards showing all the 4 remaining couples getting fitted for their wedding attire. So I've decided not to discuss those scenes for the review because I consider those scenes to be filler. But towards the end of the episode, we get to spend a few minutes watching Jasmine and Airris getting ready for their wedding, but we have to wait till next episode to see their full wedding and to actually get a decent amount of screen time for Dominique and Mac. So overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll rate this episode a solid 4. While I felt that this episode failed to make proper use of their 2-hour time slot, I was intrigued with how the cast members interacted with each other, and it's becoming more and more clear that the season will definitely be a train wreck. So let's move on to the couples for the episode. The first couple that I want to talk about is Kirsten and Shaq. The episode starts off with a continuation of their wedding, and as Kirsten is walking down the aisle, Shaq is grinning ear to ear and he's overwhelmed with joy. Now, I'm no mind reader by any means, but if I was, I believe that Shaq was thinking, damn, this girl is thicker than week-old oatmeal, and I can't wait to make her booty jiggle. Respectfully, of course. However, we see Kirsten walking down the aisle, and the look of despair has overtaken her. Even Stevie Wonder would be able to see Kirsten was not physically attracted to Shaq. Yet, Kirsten was definitely sure to display a number of fake smiles, because the show must go on. So when Kirsten and Shaq finally get to the altar, Brother Shaq started to laugh. Kirsten asked him if he thought she was a joke, and Brother Shaq replied no, because he was amazed at how good God is and how he knows that Jesus is real because he made somebody as beautiful and perfect as Kirsten. Now, before Shaq could go into a praise break, the minister proceeds with the ceremony, and I have to be honest, this was probably one of the dullest weddings that I've ever watched in the history of the show. And that's saying something. While Shaq looked like a kid in a candy shop, Kirsten looked like a hostage being told to smile. And when it comes time for Shaq and Kirsten to kiss, Kirsten gives Brother Shaq her right cheek to kiss, which means that she is not feeling him. Surprise, surprise. It also didn't help that Shaq didn't ask Kirsten permission to kiss. But Shaq doesn't seem like the type of guy that knows how to pass a test that he didn't have time to study for. So when the wedding's over, Kirsten and Shaq sit down for their one-on-one, and we learn that Kirsten has already given Shaq 2 strikes because he has a bald head and he's younger than her. But when she learned about what Shaq does for a living and how much money he makes, her eyes lit up and she saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I say Sister Kirsten went from hopeless to extremely hopeful. All in all, I think that the wedding went off better than I expected. I still have concerns for this couple, and I wonder if Shaq will be able to stand his ground with Kirsten to keep her from running over him or disrespecting him. We shall see. But on to the next couple. Next up is Nicole and Chris. When Nicole and Chris are finally shown preparing for their wedding, a great deal of time is spent with Nicole and Chris reflecting on the process with their friends. So I won't spend a great deal of time talking about that, but I did find it cute how Nicole's mother was trying to strongly encourage Nicole to keep those legs on ka-clink lockdown during the night after the wedding. We know that Nicole is ready to get that good old pickle tickle from her husband, but hopefully she makes her mother proud and she gets to know Chris before busting it wide open. I also felt some type of way how the show is promoting Chris to be a good guy. I mean, we get it by now. Chris is a good guy. He's loyal, he's in it for the long haul, and he does bad celebrity impersonations. But there has to be more to Chris than just the narrative that they're painting. But we finally get to the wedding, and Chris is sweating like a preacher in a strip club. Then all of a sudden, Nicole walks down the aisle with a smile that could light up Las Vegas, and it looked like Chris was genuinely happy to see her. In my 2 previous videos, I expressed concerns that Chris may not be physically attracted to Nicole, and this was solely based on the words that Chris used to describe his deal breakers in physical attraction. But it seems like Chris and Nicole are mutually attracted to one another. I also want to point out that Chris gladly kissed Nicole on the lips without having to ask first, and Nicole gladly kissed Chris back. The only other observations that I had with Nicole and Chris was during their one-on-one time. Nicole, in my opinion, was coming off a little too strong with Chris, in claiming that his dogs are now their dogs, and by fixing his bow tie as he was talking. Now, I don't think anything's wrong with what she did, if she was doing it for a guy that she knows like that. But Chris doesn't seem to be the type of guy that's genuinely okay with a woman making the first moves like that. I could be wrong, but we shall see. Next, we have Gina and Clint. I will say that their segment during this episode felt like it was the shortest of the completed segments. I won't harp too long on what they said during the lead up to the wedding, but with Clint admitting to sleeping with 65 women throughout his life, I gotta ask again, why the hell is he on Married at First Sight? On a side note, Clint does remind me of a cross between Bradley Cooper and Zach Galifianakis. But we get to the wedding, and Gina is walking down the aisle as she's at a parade, while Clint is just standing there looking stoned. Unlike the previous 2 weddings, there is zero nervous energy between the 2 of them, and as they exchange their vows, Clint looks like a hostage reading a demands letter to the audience. He definitely looks like he does not want to be there. And the WTF moment for the episode has to go to Gina's dog, who acted as the ring bearer for the ceremony. I've never seen such foolishness at a wedding before, but it's a first time for everything. But when the wedding was over, it looks like Clint snapped out of his funk and was ready to engage with Gina. Now, when Gina and Clint have their one-on-one, I find it interesting that Clint is coming off as admiring Gina's natural beauty. Now, don't get me wrong here. I think Gina is attractive, but in the previous episode, Clint specifically stated that he was attracted to women who did not wear makeup, and Gina was caked up with makeup for the wedding. The only other thing worth mentioning during this one-on-one time was that Gina and Clint learned that they live in the same condo unit. I find it highly unlikely that they've never bumped into one another during their time that they lived there. But furthermore, I think that it would be quite a scene if Gina found out that Clint was smashing several of the female neighbors in the condo unit. And lastly, we have Jasmine and Airris. Now, because the episode doesn't show them getting ready for the wedding until the last 10 minutes, we really don't get to see much of them. But I will say that I had a few observations during their limited time on the episode. First, as Jasmine was getting ready for the wedding, she mentioned that her biggest fear was encountering a man that was a mama's boy or a man that had sisters that were super protective. So far, all signs point to Airris being a mama's boy, being that his mama still does his laundry. And Airris does have a female cousin that may try to tip Jasmine off at the wedding reception. And when it comes to Airris, the more he continues to talk, the more I realize that he has no business being on the show. And I'm speaking as somebody who used to be just like Airris, 15 years ago that is. And in my opinion, you don't just wake up one day and decide that you want to stop the hot boy summer act. That's exactly what Airris is doing. And it's been a while since he's been in a serious relationship. But now he's jumping into a marriage with a complete stranger? This has foolishness written all over it. Now, for my final thoughts on the episode, I did a poll last week which asked everybody who they thought would consummate their marriage first. And surprisingly, I think that Gina and Clint might be the first ones to get it in, like 2 jackrabbits trapped in a tube sock. But when it comes to couples that stand the best chance of staying together past decision day, I'm leaning towards Nicole and Chris for right now. I know it's still early, but I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. But this marks the end of my video. As many of you already know by now, I like to engage with anybody who checks out these reviews. So if you have any comments related to the episode or the review, feel free to leave them below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.